Hello, this is Iteration Group 3 consisting of Marine, Noah, Eric, and Simon, and we're going to be talking about visualization. In this presentation, we'll go over the purpose of visualization, the how to create effective visuals. We'll go over a demonstration of what it looks like to create effective visuals using Tableau. We'll give you those examples of the demo. We'll evaluate the effectiveness of the visuals that have been created, and we will go ahead and give you some key takeaways at the end of things. The purpose of visualization is to really leave an impact on your audience. You're wanting to encapsulate a moment within within a set of data, or really trying to use data to create a message. And we will be doing that with the meteorite landings data set that we have talked about within our previous ones, just so we have a consistent basis for what we've been doing. And we'll go over ways that we can create this message the best way, and we'll go ahead and talk about how this data can be seen from the visualizations we created. Once again, we're going over the meteorite data we talked about quite a few times already. There's over 34,000 meteorites that it talks about. A lot of them are larger meteorites, but they've been breaking up into smaller parts, and you can see that within the names of the meteorites. There'll be a type of the name type, which will basically say, okay, is this a valid meteorite? It will talk about the mass of the meteorite in grams. It will say whether it was found on the ground, in the ground, or if it was just witnessed falling. It will talk about the year it was discovered, and it will give you the exact coordinates on a longitude, latitude level, and it will also give you the classification of meteorite. This is from NASA again, and you can find the full data set within the link below. We've created a criteria for what makes a good visualization. You really want it to be very obvious to be what it's talking about, and also very easy to read. You don't want anything to be difficult. You don't want to leave anything up to interpretation of the viewer. You really want to just put your message out there and make it easy to see. You want to use the right chart for the right data set as well. You don't want to use like a pie chart for something that's not pieces of a whole. For example, you want to make sure that the data can be seen like accurately. You don't want it something like, say you have like money and you want to show that you're losing money. You don't want to put 0 at the top so that it'll be the line graph will be going up. You want to make your design like really easy to read, and make it pleasant to look at. Use nice colors. Make everything stand out from one another, and in general, you want this to be something people can look at and instantly say, "Hey, I know what this is talking about." What we ended up doing, what we ended up doing to create this data set was, at first we started by importing the data, obviously. Then we looked through all the fields that were given to us, and we tried to figure out a way to best visualize the data for certain parts of the data, like making matches between what graph would be the best for certain aspects of the data. And then we looked through all the rows and columns, and we started moving them around to create to put the data in the right spots to create the visualizations on Tableau. And then we were able to click Show Me on the top right and pick whatever one that we thought would be the best in that situation. Or we're alternatively we're able to click on the marks card and do it from there as well. You're also able to go in a little bit more in depth there. So that was preferred. Then we were able to just make it look nice with some nice color, different sizes, adding some labels, giving it and any finalizing details that would really give it more impact. And then finally, we gave it a nice name, because you want to have a nice title that encapsulates what you've created. and then we're going to go on to show you some of these examples.
Moving on, we're going to determine how each of our visualizations that we chose are effective. Here are the 5 things that we chose to analyze and their chart type. First is meteorite fall over time, and we choose to visualize that with a line chart. Second is mass versus year, and we chose a scatter plot for that. Third was classification by frequency, and we used a bar chart for that one. Fourth was mass distribution, and we used a histogram. And finally, the fifth one is meteorite landings, and we used a heat map for that. We chose the following chart types for their effectiveness. A line chart is effective because it identifies periods of increased meteorite discoveries and factors influencing them. For the scatter plot, we chose it for its effectiveness to reveal patterns in meteorite mass distribution over time. We used a bar chart to identify the most common meteorite types. We used a histogram to show meteorite mass distribution patterns. And finally, we used a heat map to reveal geographic patterns and influences on meteorite landings. Moving on, here are the examples of the visualizations that we created. To start off, here's the line graph that we made. The goal of this line graph was to analyze trends in meteorite falls over time. The result that we found was that in 1949, 4 more meteorites fell than usual. Moving on is the scatter plot. The goal of this graph was to see if there's a pattern between a meteorite size and the year it was found. The result was that smaller meteorites were found more often in certain time periods. Up next was our bar chart. The goal of this graph was to show how many meteorites belong to each classification. What we found was that 25 meteorites belong to the classification L6. Next is the histogram. The goal of this chart was to show how many meteorites fall into different size ranges to see if most are small, medium, or large. The result was that most meteorites are tiny pebbles. Finally, we have our heat map. The goal of this map is to visualize where meteorites have landed most frequently across the world. The result that we found was that South America, Europe, and Asia had the most meteorite landings. Moving on to the next section, we will demonstrate how we created each of these visualizations.
For the line chart, to analyze the trends in meteorite falls over time, we're going to drag year into the column and then ID into the row. And then we're going to change it to line. And then ID, we need to be count. So this is what you get. So if you want to change color, you can drag year here and then click on it, edit color, and pick the color that you want. Apply and OK. So that is it for this. So now we're going to create a scatter plot to identify the trends between meteorite mass and discovery year. So we're going to drag year to column. So year to column here, and then mass to row. So we're going to change it to scatter plot here. And to add details, we're going to drag weight class here to color, filter, and then add, okay? So rather, when you get to this step, you just drag ID to details, and then you will get the year here and the mass here. If you want to change the color, you drag the mass into the color to differentiate the values. So now we're going to show how many meteorites belong to each classification. So to create the bar chart, we're going to drag the red class here to the row, and then you're going to drag ID to the column. And you're going to change the bar chart to bar chart here. and then we're going to sort by ascending or descending. So to sort, we're going to right click, ID, and then sort. So if you want it ascending or descending, depending on your choice. So this is what you get. So there's another step. You right click ID, and then you go to measure, and then you choose count. So this will count the most classification that was used. And then if you want to change the color, you can pick whichever color you like here.
Alright, I'm going to show you how to make a histogram. For this histogram, it's going to analyze the mass of each meteorite here. First, we're going to make a bin. Here we go. You select, for me, it's going to be mass, create, and make a bin. Here, you can rename it and change the size of the bin. I'm just going to go with how the suggested size here, but you can change it depending on your needs. So press OK. Next up, we're going to move our bin that we created up to the columns, and then all our records to the row. Next, let's exclude these null values. And as you see, it will create a filter for the bin. Next up, let's show the range. Select your count and create a filter. For us, it's going to be a range of 1 to 10,000. Then press apply. Now that we have our data how we want it, we can make it look more visually appealing by make it descending or ascending. You can go up top here and choose how you want it. For our case, we'll have it ascending. And that's the histogram.
So here, to create a heat map, we're going to drag. So first of all, you're going to right click and then geographic role, and then you select latitude for rect lat, and then you do the same thing for rect long. You choose longitude for this one. So when you will see that the symbols have changed, and now you're going to drag the rect lat to the column, rather the row, and then you try the rect long to the column. You build the map. So the next step, you're going to mark here card, and then you choose density. You're going to drag the mass here into the size, and then the ID here into detail. You will see the heating map. So to increase intensity, you're going to use size here, and then if you want a low density, the medium one, you choose it like that. So to change the color, we're going to go to color here, and then you can pick the color that you like. So this is how we create a heat map.
To wrap things up, you really want to use visualizations in order to tell a story. Like I said previously, you want to tell a message with your visualizations. That is the main purpose of them, to get information to your viewer quickly and with a nice graphic, other than just giving them, making them look through the data set themselves. You're highlighting moments from it and telling a story, giving a message with it. You want to avoid misleading, making things misleading when you're making a visualization. You don't want things to be unclear. You want to make things as easy to understand as possible, and you want to make sure that you choose the right visualization for the right data. And you also want to make sure that your colors make sense make logical sense. If you need to show someone else what you've created and get feedback on it, that is the best way for you to improve about something, is to get feedback so you can edit and change it. And when you're making good visuals, it will create a more meaningful experience for your audience when they look at your visualization compared to just the raw data. Thank you for watching our presentation on visualizations.